Test, test, 1, 2. Test, 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 1, 2, 1, 2. Test, 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 1, 2. Testing, 1, 2, 1, 2.
coming from. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to tonight's candidate forum. I'm Jeff Gabriel, and the Rotary Club of Bishop Sunrise would like to welcome you to this forum. As a part of 34,000 Rotary clubs around the world, 200 countries, and 1.4 million Rotarians, we are trying to make the world a better place through peace and camaraderie. So with that, we want to again welcome you to this candidate forum, and I'd like to introduce Christina Justice.
Good evening. As always, it is such an honor to be back with you here this evening. I'd like to take a moment to thank each of our candidates for Bishop Unified School District Board. We have 4 candidates and there are 2 seats available. Thank you guys for taking the time out of your evening to be with us here and discuss issues that are important to the future of Bishop's education system. Also, thank you to the First United Methodist Church for graciously allowing us to use this facility once again for this forum. You all are familiar with the First United Methodist Church's social services program. They do the soup kitchen, they have a food pantry. You may have seen a little slip of paper like this when you came in. The food pantry is in desperate need of donations. So it's one way we can thank them for all they do is to support their ministry to the community by bringing non-perishable food items to the church. I'd also like to thank Eastern Sierra Now, Jesse Steele and his team for live streaming this forum. We are online. So for all of you who couldn't be here tonight in person, hello, and thank you for joining us online. We can actually take comments through the comment section on the live stream. So if you have a question that you would like to ask the candidates, please go ahead and put that in the live stream comment section, and Jesse and I will work on getting those to the candidates. And I would also like to thank John Loomis, who is our timekeeper this evening. He has the toughest job in the room. Thank you, John. Thank you for volunteering to do this and keeping us on track. And once again, huge thank you to the Bishop Sunrise Rotary for providing us the opportunity to hold this candidates forum. And I'd like to thank all of you for coming out this evening to hear the issues that are important to our community and to our school board. You will have the opportunity to ask questions for the school board candidates. We are kind of on a tight schedule tonight, so if you have questions, please go ahead and write those down. There are 3x5 cards here, and there's a box in the back. There's a basket up here that you can put those questions in. Please don't ask any gotcha questions. Keep them relevant to local issues, and we will do our best to make sure that we cover as many topics as possible. If multiple people ask the same question, we'll just combine those into one question to put to the candidate so we can cover as much as we can. The format of this forum is designed to be as fair and impartial to our candidates as possible. We are not doing this presidential debate style. During the first half of the forum, the candidates will each have an allotted time to introduce themselves, to answer. They will also have an opportunity to answer questions that they have been presented with ahead of time. So the first half of the forum is prepared questions. They've prepared their answers so they can give those answers. And then the second half of the forum, we will have an introduction. Katie Kulker will be giving a presentation, just a purely informational presentation about measures R and S, which are school bond measures that are in this year's ballot. I don't know how many of you got your Inyo County voter guides in the mail. There is the full wording of those bonds is in that voter guide if you would like to see it. So during the intermission, she'll give that presentation. After that, we will put your questions to these candidates and hear what they have to say. So other than that, the rules for this forum are very simple. Just be polite, respectful, and appropriate, and put your cell phones on mute. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. It is my honor to introduce our school board candidates, and this evening, the first candidate to introduce himself will be Jamie Morley.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming out and joining us for this evening. I know it takes a lot of time out of people's schedules during the week to come to these things, so we appreciate it. My name is Jamie Morley. I'm a district supervisor for road construction department in Crowley Lake. I have 2 wonderful girls in the school system, one in middle school and one in elementary school. I'm passionate about being a part of their lives. I ran a couple of years ago and came pretty close. So I still feel like I can bring a lot of leadership, dedication, and passion to the school board. And that's why I'm here tonight. I believe the purpose of a public education system is to give all the children of the community an equal opportunity to have a wonderful education and get them jump-started for a great childhood and a prosperous life as an adult. So that's why I'm running for school board, and I appreciate everybody being here.
Thank you, Jamie. Our next candidate is Steve Elia.
How's the mic doing? Okay, good. Yeah, so that was your first mistake, giving me a microphone and saying, hey, talk about education, because we're going to be here all night, but thank you, John. You'll keep me on track, right? Keep me honest. Of course, thank you to the Sunrise Rotary for hosting this event. It's a great opportunity for the community to get to hear from the candidates, not just tonight, but also for the City Council as well. And thank you all for taking time out of your busy evenings to be part of this. I've got an ask for you, even before I introduce myself, which is that based on what you hear tonight, I hope it doesn't end. I hope this isn't showing up for something to listen, but is taking the messages you hear tonight and talking to your neighbors and your friends, because what's most important is that folks are getting out to the ballots and they are voting about 3.5 weeks from now, whatever your position might be. So please see this as a launch and not a landing. My name is Steve Elia, and I've been on the school board here. This is the third time I'm running, and hopefully I'll be 3 for 3 on coming out of this. I've served as a school board president for the last 2 years. We've been through some challenging times, but I feel like with the collaboration we've had on the board between the 5 of us and with my leadership as well, we've managed to have some very productive and respectful and open meetings, and we hope that that'll continue no matter who's on the board as we move to the future. I've lived in this community. I've seen lots of familiar faces out there, almost 30 years now. Some of you were in my class, right, back when I was a teacher. I taught here in the high school for 15 years, and some of you were colleagues with me when I was teaching there. After I left the classroom, I went to work as a program specialist for a college and career readiness program. I'm a lifetime educator. Coming out of high school, I did my first teaching as a wilderness mountain guide, and that was my first career for 10 years. At some point, I exchanged that classroom for one with walls, but I really believe in the same ethics I had when I was teaching the outdoors, that it's about students having deep experiential learning opportunities so that they can form their own opinions about what it is they're learning, what is that content, whether it's math, science, history, or English. I've raised my family here, put my kids through the school system here. I've got 2 seniors, so I'm looking forward to graduation with dread because I don't want them to go, but also with a certain amount of pride and anticipation. I'm running for the school board because I want to keep the good work we've been doing going, and I believe we have a moral obligation to make sure that every single student in our community, every single child, has a fair and equitable education and preparing them for the future that they can design for themselves. So thank you all again for coming out tonight, and look forward to seeing you at the ballot box.
Thank you, Steve. Our next candidate is Michelle Mulligan.
Good evening, everyone. Okay, hear me okay? All right. My name is Michelle Mulligan. I am a Bishop local of 25 years. I was raised here by my parents that are here this evening. And I have also met my beautiful husband here in the Eastern Sierra, and 2 of my 3 girls have been born here. I have deep community ties to the Eastern Sierra and a love for our small town. I believe public education is as a fundamental element to our country as much as our forefathers believed. A public education is a bedrock institution, from one-room schoolhouse, hiring a local teacher, by the community, teaching the students of the community by the community's needs, then elevating to a few teachers, teaching a few students of the area, also still hired locally, making sure it's keeping the community standards in line with the education. Fast forwarding today to where we have school districts hiring dozens, even hundreds of educators to educate sometimes thousands of children in multiple facilities. So it is a crucial element of our system as our country. We need, I believe, to return to the reasons why we started a public educational system and focusing as to the voice of the community and the community they serve. Also making sure that we have the facilities ready to facilitate that education and making sure that we're not causing harm, more harm than good. when I was approached about running for school board, I didn't think myself to be the best candidate, but I saw an opportunity and a blessing from my family and from mentors and leaders in the community for trying to get that voice of a working parent, mom of 3 girls here, and also trying to bring the best foot forward for our community. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you, Michelle. Karen Keene.
And again, I'm a theater person, so I feel more comfortable with a script. So I'm going to do that. I'm not as good when I want to say specific things, but thank you for coming. I believe the purpose of public education is to provide a good, well-rounded, scientifically and historically accurate education to children of all races, genders, religions, and physical or mental abilities. Public schools serve a range of students from those who are wheelchair-bound and nonverbal to those who are super athletes and exceptional academics. Public schools teach every child from those whose parents are super involved and supportive to those who have absolutely no support for the school or their children. Public schools work hard to meet the needs of those widely different children and constantly strive to do better. I'm running for the BUSD Board of Trustees because I believe our schools need experienced leadership. Leadership that understands how public schools work. Leadership that doesn't come in with any agenda other than to meet our students' needs and help provide a learning environment that helps them to love learning and excel to the best of their abilities. As a third-generation, 37-year trained and credentialed educator who has actually been in Bishop schools 44 of the last 45 years of my life, I think that I am better equipped than many to meet this challenge. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. All right, now that we've gotten to know our candidates a little bit, we're going to jump into the prepared questions. Steve, you'll take this one first. What has your and your family's educational experience been with public, private, or homeschooling? How will that experience inform and shape your role on the BUSD board? Steve?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm sure there's some parents out here tonight who've got some teenagers. So you know how my family experience with schooling, it's just been easy. They come home, they're like, Dad, I've got some homework, I'll be with you in an hour, and they come out. No, that's not what it is at all, right? Education is challenging. It doesn't matter the family you come from, it doesn't matter what you get to bring to school, the challenges you face to come to our schools, whether you're in the 3rd grade learning to read, or in the 7th grade learning about world cultures, or in AP English here as a senior. Education, public education, is a challenge for every student. My hope is that the education we're bringing to them will challenge each and every one of them. I know in my personal journey through education, I'm the first in my family to go to college. Both my parents were immigrants. It has been, for me, what has created most of the opportunities in my life. When I look at why I'm sitting here today, if I had to narrow that down to 2 reasons, I could tell you what they are: loving parents and the education I was given. What I know is that education needs to be available, and a high-quality education for every single student. That belief in the possibility and what it's given me makes me want to give back to our communities in this role as a board member to ensure that each and every student in our district has those same opportunities I've had. I believe in public schools. I believe in the power of them to not just teach the subjects, English, math, science, history, but also to transform our students into the kind of learners and dreamers that are going to shape our future and are going to bring our country to where it can be as we face the continued challenges. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. All right, Michelle.
All right. I actually have experience, with me and my family, we have experience in all 3 sectors of education: private, homeschooling, and public. Me personally will be with the public and the homeschooling system, heavily weighing on my personal experience in homeschooling all the way from 2nd grade all the way through high school. I believe that my homeschooling experience can also shed light when we were all of a sudden all dropped into distance learning post-COVID, and being able to educate effectively from the home, and being able to have teachers ready to be able to effectively teach from their homes into students' homes. I would really have liked to have been a part of the school board at the time to help structure a distance learning for the post-COVID recovery for our education system. In my experience with the public system, also not just as a student but also as a parent, it was evident in both cases that it was very much evident that the public school systems have not been listening too much to the voices of the community and the concerns of parents, and keeping the focal points of education being that of the fundamental core subjects that our children need to be taught. The benefits I have received from a homeschooling education, we're able to really focus on those core educational values and being able to graduate with honors from the homeschooling community here locally and earning all of my college credits to be able to attend Cerro Coastal Community College, where I also excelled at the top of my classes. When I look at being able to bring all those things together, I think that makes me not the best candidate, but a well-rounded candidate, being able to see both types of families that want to distance learn as well as bring their children to the public system. Thank you.
I'm a third-generation educator. I attended public schools my whole life, and I even went to a state college. Public schools provided me not only with an excellent education, but also with the social interaction that helped to help me form how I function in the real world. It's helped me become who I am today. My experiences in high school with student government, drill team, music, and the other things, as well as my college experiences with stronger academic competition and the ability to become an elite athlete, have absolutely shaped my life. All these experiences have led me to the place I am today, with decades of experience in public schools and the desire to help my community. As far as my knowledge of private schools and homeschooling goes, I have very little. I did teach in a private school for a year and was very disappointed at the absence of specialized education for children who needed it. There was no special ed, no academic interventions to help students, nothing. And this was supposedly one of the top schools in Orange County. Now, that was a very long time ago, and I hope that it's changed since then. I had never even heard of homeschooling till I came to Bishop. I know that here in Bishop, the homeschooling is a co-op, which brings kids together so that they're not isolated as they were before. I know that some young adults who are homeschooled thrive, but I also know of a couple of young adults who have absolutely hated homeschooling and suffered because they had learning disabilities that were not addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. All right, Jamie.
My experience with the different school systems have actually been kind of diverse. I attended Christian school through grade 2, and I was homeschooled through grade 8. I then graduated for Bishop Union High School in the class of '99. These varied experiences have given me a unique perspective on the different types of school systems and the pros and cons of each of them. Christian school provided a strong foundation for my values and helped me develop a solid moral compass early on. Homeschooling built upon that foundation, offering flexibility in scheduling and the opportunity to continue nurturing those values. Public school, however, was where I had a chance to branch out, socializing, participating in athletics, and preparing for the real world. For me, that participation came through hands-on learning in the trades. I learned to weld through the ag mechanics program, and I gained valuable skills working on cars and small engine repair and auto shop programs. After high school, I joined the Marine Corps and learned heavy equipment, truck driving, and went to combat and got to see the world. So once I was done seeing the world, I couldn't wait to come back to Bishop. And today, me and my wife have chosen to raise our 2 daughters in the public school system, and my oldest is in 7th grade, and my youngest is in 4th in the elementary school. I am running for the school board to ensure that the educational experience stays on the right track and moves in the right direction I believe it should. Looking back on my own school years, I wouldn't change a thing. Life is about embracing different experiences, people, and various walks of life, and building lasting relationships, all of which I have been fortunate to do.
All right, thank you. And let's see, Steve, you went first, so Michelle's going to take the next one. Just a reminder, everyone, if you have questions, please be sure that those get submitted, and if you are attending online, please be sure your questions go in the comments of the live stream. All right, our second question. Public schools serve our whole community and educate a wide variety of students of different ethnic backgrounds, religious beliefs, sexual orientations, and human characteristics. How would you use your position on the school board to support staff and educators, engage community members, parents, and guardians, and provide a learning environment that supports all students and their families? Michelle?
And we only have 2 minutes?
2 minutes.
Well, I definitely see the structure of this question being based off of the California School Board Association's 5 core values, being that we provide support to our teachers and staff, we provide structure, we provide direction, and using those proven structures to get that direction going. We can also use a system of accountability and also getting that advocacy in place for students, the schools, and the district. My position I hope to obtain in the school board would be focused on our fundamental education, being able to get back to basics. Not that we need to exclude our extracurriculars and our sports or anything like that. Those are all well and good, and they shape a wonderful experience for our students here. However, when we deviate too much from those core subjects, we often lose focus as to why we're actually here. And when we don't show that effectively to our community, we lose the community's trust as a school board would. And we desperately need to get that back and getting our confidence back from our community members that the school board is indeed focused on education of every student of every walk of life, and being able to realize what is part of the educational experience and what is divisive and needs to stay in the home. Policies have been used in the past of other divisive topics, and I believe those same policies could be used in other areas of our educational system. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Karen?
I'm the jack in the box here. Just like the students we teach, people are all different in their needs and their beliefs. Public schools understand and accept that. They offer parents the opportunity to opt their child out of portions of the curriculum which those parents don't feel is appropriate for their child. As a board member, I would try to always have an open line of communications with parents and teachers and staff so that I could hear their concerns and try to help act on them. Our community is changing, and we must always be able to find ways to change within the limits of what the state requires being taught. Teaching openness and acceptance of those who have different beliefs, lifestyles, abilities, and sexual orientations, I believe, is an important part of learning how to be a good human being. I believe this is one of the goals for the Bishop High School this year, and I would support it fully.
Thank you, Karen. Jamie?
Right. Public schools serve as a cornerstone of our community, welcoming students from a wide variety and backgrounds, religious beliefs, and socioeconomic groups. As a school board member, I would work to ensure that we continue to support all the students and their families, valuing the differences that make our community so unique. In Bishop, we're fortunate to have a tight-knit community that celebrates our differences. We have a mix of blue-collar, white-collar, outdoor adventure families, strong presence in the Latino and Native communities and populations. People come here not only for the beauty and the landscape, but also for the sense of unity and support the small town offers. The role of a school board is to represent the students, their families, and uphold the values of our community. I believe our schools already work hard to provide a great environment for the students, but if there are areas of concern, I would encourage the community members to bring them to the school board. My goal would be to ensure that every student feels heard and that we are continuing to foster a school environment that reflects the uniqueness of both our community and our students who attend our schools.
Thank you, Jamie. Steve.
Thank you. I feel like I want us to look forward, right? That's where we need to go. How are we going to do these things? But I feel like for us, it's really good for us to look backwards to see what we're doing already. I would have liked to see the word continue emphasized a bit more in this question, because over the last 4 years, we've done so much to support our students and our staff and engage our community. We have been committed as a board, and you can look at our voting record to see that we are creating a learning environment that has supported and will continue to support all students and their families, each one of them, none at the expense of another. And while sometimes there are issues or agendas that are brought to us, oftentimes those, if we were to move in those directions, it will be at the expense of other students. We want to create the kind of learning environment which Jamie said so well is going to support each and every student in finding their path through the educational system. We want to make sure that they feel like they are safe and supported in the environment so they can thrive in their learning. I also want to focus specifically on what we can do to support staff. And one of the things I think we can do as a board is continue to ensure that beyond the law and education code that we must follow, that's our obligation, that we create a space where our teachers in the classroom can make the kind of curricular decisions they know are best for their students. All of those teachers, we have 100% of our teachers who are trained professionals. If you look at their college degrees, they're going to have majors in their fields of study, and they've gone on to get a teaching certificate and perhaps even a master's degree. We want to ensure that while, of course, the views and the context of the community we live in is always considered, that we trust the professionals in the room to make decisions to support each and every student, because each and every one of our teachers has every student's best interest at heart.
Thank you, Steve. All right. And our last question of the first half of this forum, Karen, you will take this one first. This one's a good one. What would you most like to change about our public schools? What would you hope does not change? Karen?
Well, I've been looking at the things that we already have, and a lot of them are really, really good. And I was concerned about the industrial arts program and thought maybe that was a good thing to look at until I found out that we have a great industrial arts program now. So the one thing that I would like to see is I'd like to see a drama class back at the high school. Now, I know you might think that that's frivolous, but theater provides a niche for kids who may not fit in other situations. Also, speaking publicly is one of the most gigantic fears that most adults have. And being involved in theater allows kids to gain a confidence and a poise and a stage presence that they can carry on through their classes and for the rest of their lives. As far as what I'd like to see not change, I'd like to see our schools remain those who offer our children a wide variety of learning and experiential opportunities. All kids, but especially kids in a small, isolated town like Bishop, need those opportunities. Many of our students are incredibly sheltered and never ever leave this area. So I think it's really important. A lot of students leave Bishop after graduation only to be overwhelmed, and they come right back. So getting our kids out is important. Our band just went to Washington, D.C. last spring. Let those kids march in the Memorial Day Parade in Washington, D.C. Our choirs compete at Disneyland for many years. Our mathletes and athletes travel far to compete. And who knows, our football team may have to answer a challenge to a football team in Alaska. These are experiences that these kids will never forget and will remind them that there is a big world out there outside Bishop, and perhaps they'll be less intimidated by it.
Thank you, Karen. Jamie.
What I would most like to change about our public schools and what I hope does not change. What I would most like to change is what seems to be an underlying movement to divide each other and separate us into different groups instead of working together like this community does and has my whole life. I know everybody in this room almost. I have deep roots in the community and we've always picked each other up when somebody's down. We work together to have a great community, and I would love to get rid of that underlying division feeling that we all are kind of feeling right now. What I would hope doesn't change are all the wonderful traditions that we have, the great school district and the town has. The whole community coming to support sporting events, academic achievements, hiring local kids to come back into the community after they've gone to culinary school or graduated college or trade schools. That's what I did. I left for 8 years and came back and couldn't wait to raise my kids in the community that I was raised in. I love the tradition of the fundraisers and the boosters and the charities. Dads driving the homecoming nominees in their hot rods at homecoming football game. It's one of my favorite parts. And all the other things that make Bishop such a wonderful place to live.
All right, thank you, Jamie. Steve?
I'd have to agree with that, right? I'm going to start with what I would not change. I always like to live in the positive. Those who know me know that I'm a glass half full and an optimist. But I think the tradition, that's one of the gifts of making Bishop the place where I've raised my family and where I came as a young adult, almost 30 years old, and I spent most of my adult life here. And getting to become part of a small community coming from a bigger city and seeing those exact traditions Jamie's talking about. I'm going to get to walk my daughter across the football field as one of the homecoming princesses, and to get to actually not just witness that tradition but be a part of it. That's a gift for us all, and I wouldn't change that for anything. As well, I wouldn't change the optimism I see in schools. I can't tell you how many teachers I've talked to or staff members who are tired and who are working hard, but every time we finish those conversations, it's with hope and with possibility and with optimism that tomorrow is another day and they're going to start fresh once again to support our kids. And that's the kind of environment we have. Now, what would I change? Yeah, I've got a couple things. Actually, if we had all evening, I've got a long list, and I can tell you from my one-on-one meetings with Katie Kolkar, our superintendent, she's like, okay, enough already, right? But I believe that growth is always ahead of us. We can always do better. I believe in that perpetual improvement. And one of the areas I'd like to see us improve in is around student behavior. We can't have kids vaping in bathrooms. We can't have them, as I said over and over, lining up by the classroom door waiting to get out, or the teacher having to say 2 months into the school year, hey, put your cell phone away. Right? That shouldn't be something that we need to do. Our kids need to know what the behavioral expectations are. Our teachers need to hold them to those behavioral expectations, and our administrators need to support the teachers when they do that. I also think we need to have a continued culture of collaboration and a focus on excellence, so that when we drive by our schools here, we're seeing banners. California Blue Ribbon School, School of Distinction, National Demonstration School, Title I School of Achievement. For so long as I've lived in Bishop, I've heard people talk about this is just Bishop, or it's just Bishop kids. Our kids here don't deserve our best. They deserve the best. And I want to see us develop a culture of excellence that gives them just that.
Thank you, Steve. Michelle?
Alrighty, similar to Steve, I wanted to answer the second part of that question first. It seems to be a shorter list. What I hope doesn't change in our school district is this location of our schools. They are in a heritage location, but not as a physical location, but also they hold a very special meaning and place and memories in all of our communities' hearts and memories with family, friends over generations. What I also hope does not change is the spirit that also helped bring those schools to be. Being a small-knit community and trying to come together to focus on education of our children here, where we've chosen to raise our families, where I have chosen to raise my family after going and coming back, similar to Jamie. Already seeing that in California, we have a unique slice of paradise in our little community and needing to keep it that way. In the spirit of wanting to make things change for the positive, to keep that tradition alive, is similar to Jamie's, is that trying to make sure we have that small town tradition still available for all of our kids of all grades. Being able to feel the booster programs in the elementary school, being able to have the homecoming and prom parades, and being able to get more pomp and circumstance and the pride that we have in our Rams and our Colts and our Broncos. When we see the strength that we've picked for our mascots for each location, I think the educational standards also need to meet that. Making sure we have the discipline and the procedures and the policies in place to make sure that we have excellence for our kids here. Making sure we have telephone policies that are aligning with new codes that are coming through. Making sure that we are prioritizing the children's time as well as teachers' time in the classroom to make sure it's focused on academics and not just trying to always work on structural behaviors.
Thank you, Michelle. And that concludes the first half of our forum. Again, please get those questions submitted right away. There is cookies and refreshments in the back of the room. And I'm going to turn it over to Katie Cocker to give a presentation on the bond measures that are available in the, or that are being presented in this year's ballot. Thank you.
As Katie comes up, this is the last call for questions. So if you're writing a question, raise your hand so we see you, because we're going to take them and get them ready to be asked.
Yeah, appreciate it. Just set my timer so I don't. Oh, you got me. All right. I won't worry about it. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us tonight in support of our schools and learning more about these candidates. I'm here to share a little bit more information about Measures R and S. There are some flyers up here at the table. If you'd like to come and grab one, or on your way out, feel free. They have QR codes with even more information. Everything can be found on our website as well. You can just dive deep if you want and get all the information you'd like about these measures. Today, my goal actually is to provide a couple of myth busters for you. The fact that you're here kind of tells me that you're already somewhat informed about what's going on in the schools, and so perhaps you've heard a little bit about these bond measures already. But there has been some information that I have heard and others have shared with me that isn't accurate in terms of what these bonds do or are meant to do. And so my goal here is to share a little bit of that with you. Our facilities are showing their age. Almost all of our buildings are over 50 years old. We haven't had any huge investments into facilities in our community since the 70s. And kudos to those folks in the 70s that pulled off some of the renovation in the main building and updated some of those rooms. We're grateful for that. But the infrastructure hasn't been touched on any of our campuses. And the roofs are leaking. There's buckets in classrooms. The HVAC systems are failing. Students are very hot some months. Students are very cold other months. Carpets are deteriorating. Ceiling tiles are falling. It's not a good situation. And it's beyond the typical wear and tear that any of us can do in our homes year to year just to update. After a while, if you're a homeowner, you have to invest some money into the sticks of your home so that it stays up. And so that's the position we find ourselves in now, and that's what Measures R and S would aim to do. The funds for these measures would specifically go towards facilities and not be able to be used for anything else that is not on that project list. And if you're interested in the project list, it is lengthy and included in your voter guide, but there's an abbreviated version on the information on the QR code on any of the flyers that you might see about these measures. So one of the myths that I have heard around is that Proposition 2 at the state level and Measures R and S at our local level are essentially the same thing, and so it might be redundant to fund them both. This is a myth because Proposition 2 would actually fund school bonds for local school districts that want matching funds. So because of the age of our facilities, we are eligible for up to $12.6 million in state matching funding. However, we don't get to touch that funding unless we can show that we have over $8 million of facility funds available. Our little district does not have $8 million of funds available. We've been scrapping away to try to get up to $1 million just to replace a couple of roofs that are actively leaking. So if these bond measures pass, we can show we have the funds, we're then eligible for the $12.6 million from the state. And how would the state fund that? Through Prop 2. If Prop 2 doesn't pass, the state is still on the hook for our matching funds if we're eligible for them, but it's a multi-year wait list. So it becomes a cash flow issue in terms of when we can get our projects done. They would still owe us the money, but it might take 6 years to get the money instead of 2. So that's the difference between Proposition 2 and Measures R and S. Another myth is that the full cost of the facility improvement projects would come solely from the backs of hardworking Bishop families and homeowners. Of course, we all would pay our part, and the dollar signs show that. I understand this is a big ask for our community. But it's important to note that assessed value in our district, well, let me take that back, not the majority. 45% of the assessed value in our district is owned by LADWP, which means that LADWP then would be taxed and pay into these bond measures and fund 45% of the cost. So again, an opportunity we wouldn't have if the bonds don't pass. And that on top of the $12.6 million that could come from the state that wouldn't be eligible either. Another myth I've heard is that our district didn't spend all of the emergency relief funds that it received, the COVID pandemic funds that we received. Those have all been expended. There's about 2 of those grants left, and you can look at the plans on our website as to how those funds are being used. There's one fund specifically called Educator Effectiveness Funds. Those go straight towards teachers and students. They can't be used for facilities, but there were funds that we received, such as ESSER funds, that helped fund the new elementary building on the Bishop L campus. The majority of that building was funded using ESSER funds, in addition to our after-school program funding. Next myth, specific facility improvement projects haven't been listed or prioritized. That basically this would just kind of be an open-ended, decide last minute how you might spend the money. So this is also a myth. Project lists are available, as I've mentioned, online, as well as on the voter registration guide. And there would be a citizens oversight committee that would help determine and prioritize what projects should go first and last, and then recommend those, or bring those recommendations to the school board for final approval. Next myth is that our district simply hasn't maintained our school facilities, and that's why we're in the position we're in. I think I've spoken to this already. It's been generations since we've asked for any taxpayer dollars. Our county keeps bond measure records for the last 50 years, and the only 2 that Bishop has asked of our community have funded the electric, or the solar panels on the Bishop Elementary School, which lowers our electric bill, and the cafeteria and science buildings. So all new construction. We haven't reached out for repair ever. And so the Bishop High School main building, being 103 years old with original infrastructure, it's a matter of time that we're going to need to do something about that building if we want to continue to use it. We polled our community in the spring. We asked, what would your direction be for our district in terms of the main building? Invest in it so students can continue to use it, invest a little less and just have it be used for adults and administrative purposes, or tear it down and build a new building altogether. So I can imagine you can guess on how our community felt about that. The vast majority want to keep the building. They appreciate the history, the charm, the fact that multiple generations have walked through those steps and want to continue to use it for students. So that is about 70% of Measure R in and of itself. The estimated cost to renovate that building with new electrical, new drainage, plumbing, ADA compliance is over $30 million. So again, not funds that we can just keep squirreling and scrapping away if we want to keep using that building. And finally, if you would like more information about Measures R and S, or have questions, feel free to reach out to me personally, but there are QR codes everywhere, so any flyer you can find about Measure R and S has one. Come to our website. Feel free to reach out to any of our school staff, but You can tell I'm passionate about this and really believe that if we invest in our schools now, our community is going to be better off and our kids get to benefit. So thank you.
Turn me on.
always sharks following.
All right, if you would,
Good job, Steve.
thank you. If you would return to your seats, we're going to go ahead and get started with the second part of the forum, please.
Will you repeat that we're on the Eastern Sierra now,
Yes.
YouTube, or
And
Facebook page?
when do we want to cut it off? At 8 o'clock or 8:15?
Well, let's see how we're doing at 8.
Okay.
You'll have a good deal for it.
Text me. I'll have my phone with me. So
Okay.
if it vibrates, yeah. All right, did everybody get some cookies, a soda? And just a reminder, and thank you to Eastern Sierra Now for live streaming this event. We appreciate you guys. Thank you. There were some questions that were submitted virtually. I feel so high tech right now. All right, there were some incredibly excellent questions that were submitted, and we did have to combine several of them because there was several that were around similar subjects. So we're going to try to cover as many of those topics as we can. And Jamie, you'll go first. The candidates will have 90 seconds each for these questions, and we'll try to get through as many as we can. So we're going to start this off with a question that was submitted online. What do you feel the board's role is in tracking compliance of state rules and regulations, as well as educational code in classrooms, athletics, administration, and extended learning opportunities? Jamie.
Can you read it again?
Yes. Like I said, there were some, these were some doozies. What do you feel the board's role is in tracking compliance of state rules and regulations, as well as educational code in classrooms, athletics, administration, and extended learning opportunities?
I believe the board's role is to make sure the rules are being followed, and tracking those rules is an important thing. And compliance with the rules can vary in different situations, and that's a tough question to answer. I mean, it's a long-winded question that requires more than 90 seconds. So, you know, we have to work within the rules of the state, but we also need to not step on people's civil liberties. So it takes a long time to answer this question. I think the school board's job is to make sure we're following the rules, but we aren't trampling on people's civil liberties too.
All right, thank you, Jamie. Steve.
Yeah, thanks. I want to respectfully disagree with Jamie right there. I think it's a pretty straightforward and simple answer, which is it's our obligation as board members. We take an oath when we get our position to ensure that we are in compliance with federal, state laws, mandates, and education code. That's the context that we operate within. Right, so to me, that feels like a pretty straightforward answer. We need to ensure that we've got the infrastructure and the data to track how well we're doing that, and more importantly, how we can use that data to maintain our compliance. I think the place where we have impact as board members is that once we're within that sandbox, if you will, right, once we're playing within the rules, that's where our individual personalities, values, and perspectives are going to come to play. And that's the area where we can decide what do we want to do locally for our district within our context. How can we ensure that we are understanding and considering the norms and values and beliefs of our community, of our neighbors, of our parents, of course, and our educators as well, and bring that together to come up with the best solution within the confines of policy and compliance. So that's that place where we as a board can have some influence and some control to ensure that the way we're implementing policy within our district serves our community and our students.
Thank you, Steve. Michelle.
I want to give a quick shout out to our tech guy. Thank you so much, Jeff, for the quick help with the mic at the break. When presented with a question as detailed and multifaceted as this, it really is hard to fit that all in 90 seconds. I believe that the school board's role is to have a balance between the voices and the the concerns and the values of the community, which is part of the School Board Association's Code of Ethics on the website and a part of their policies, as well as making sure that we're staying state compliant with what are definitely do's and don'ts. I do definitely agree that there is definitely a sandbox area to make sure that we are staying within compliance, but also realizing that we have wiggle room where we can and some where we can't. But definitely making sure that we're not trampling on our locals' rights and our values as a small town here in Bishop. When we send our kids to school, we want to make sure that everything is going to be going just so, but also that we are feeling heard as parents and as a community to make sure our children are coming up with the same values and structure and education that we were brought up with in our generations that are reflected in this room. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Karen.
I'd love to say what Steve said, but I would also tend to agree that as a board member, that's your job, is to keep things in compliance and to make sure that things are working smoothly and that the rules are being followed and that test scores are being tracked and all of that. I really think that if we're doing that, then if we're doing that in the right way, then we're meeting those kids' needs, we're reaching out to parents, we're keeping our students academically strong, and we're staying in compliance with all the things that the state wants us to do while meeting the needs of the students and hopefully the teachers and staff as well.
Thank you, Karen. All right, our next question, Steve, you'll take this one first. Will you be voting for or against bond measures R and S?
I'll be voting for those. I know there's some concerns in our community wondering about, it's going to be, there'll be a price tag for each of us. And I know that these have not been easy times these last 4 years. So it is a challenge to each of those families who are going to have to make those contributions. As a school board, we worked long and hard to assess the facilities needs that we've got on our campus. And we looked at all of the creative solutions we could come up with to lessen the impact for our community in terms of needing to pay for these things. But what we ended up with was that the way to get this work done is through a bond, and that we thought we wanted to reach out to our community to ask for that support. You've heard it from almost all the candidates this evening that we are a tight community, we're a connected community, we have the value of taking care of each other, and so now the ask is, can you please help us take care of our schools, because the need is unquestionable, right? We had sewage coming out of the Bishop Student Center over at the high school the other day. We had a roof blown off our gym the other day. We're facing continued issues. So I think an as important question for each candidate up here isn't just, are you going to support the bond or not? Because we all agree that the facilities have needs. There's not one person up here that doesn't agree with that. My question is also, if it's not going to be the bond, then what's your solution? Because it's easy to say, no, I don't want to do that. It's much harder to fix the problem, and that's what we are committed to doing with measures R and S.
Thank you, Steve. All right, Michelle.
All right, I knew this one was coming. In regards to my personal vote, that's between me and the polls as to how I will vote on Election Day. As far as my support or defiance for measures R and S, it hits a sensitive area for all of us. It's not just our evident campuses that need our infrastructure is deteriorating. Classrooms are becoming distracted by leaking roofs and tiles. We have kids using the same second grade bathrooms that I used over 20 years ago. However, it comes to paying for all of these, it's difficult to be asking such a taxed community to increase taxes. While it is for a much deserved cause, it is still a price tag that you have to address yourselves individually at the polls when you vote on Election Day, whether you want to put forth towards that expense on top of what you're already paying in taxes versus, we need to look at some other options. I would be very much for working with this bond should it pass on election day, and also be coming up with other solutions that might be available, just with some more discussions and more research, even with outside of our state, to be able to get our infrastructure updated that we need on our campuses. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Karen?
Well, I don't hesitate to say that I will absolutely be voting for the bond issues. I've already marked them on my ballot. It's mandatory. We have to do this now. If we don't pass these now, we miss out on the $12 million matching funds from the state. We're scraping everything we can just to keep things going, and that's not going to be able to happen for much longer. We just can't do it. And I know that it's a big ask of the community, but at some point, I think the community needs to come together for our kids. If you want to keep that building, we've got to pass these bonds. Otherwise, that building is not going to be usable in another 5 to 10 years. If you want to keep our schools safe and comfortable for our kids, you've got to realize that the board has already been working on trying to find every other possible funding source that they can, and there aren't any. We haven't asked anything of this community in a long, long time as far as bond issues to help our schools, and they desperately need it now. I'm in the schools, in the elementary school all the time, and I see it, and it's 10 times worse over here. I would vote yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Karen. Jamie?
Okay, yeah, it's definitely not mandatory. Everybody gets to have their vote. So I would recommend that everybody does a lot of research on it, make your own decision. For me personally, I'm going to vote yes on it. I have young kids in the school system. I work in the government. I know how slow and terrible things work if you're counting on them to come do it for you. I think me saying that we live in a tight community and we pick each other up when we fall down would be hypocritical to say, no, I'm not voting for this. So me personally, I am. Everybody can make their own decision here. But our schools need it bad. I want my kids to come through the system in nice facilities and not be jumping over sewage rivers. So that's how I'm going to vote.
Thank you, Jamie. All right, Michelle, you'll be taking this next question first. What underlying divisions do you see, and what would you suggest as a resolution to them?
First of all, underlying divisions are only really defined by those who want to see the divisions. When we come together as a community and our love for our heritage that we have as a community, and especially for our love of our children and the future that this town does indeed have, it is a very unifying concept in our Bishop area. When we want to be particular about divisive topics, then we're only causing more division. As far as divisive areas that are there currently, they're only there because we want them to stay there. When we come together in spirit of education to educate, then the divisiveness should dissipate. When we are focused on policies and procedures and curriculum that offer a not only wide variety of viewpoints, but also being able to give everyone their choice in that matter, where is the divisiveness? When we're constantly having the question of whether teachers or educators in the system infiltrating their teaching with political views, that can be divisive. So it's really focusing on what can be done currently, as well as policies that should be made to make sure the divisiveness doesn't continue.
Thank you, Michelle. Karen?
This is a tough one for me to articulate. I work with the kids, and there's no division there with the kids. I work with the teachers, and for the most part, there's no division there. The teachers care about the kids care about the teachers and the learning. And so when we get up to us adults, that's things start happening. I think that, I'm trying to form my words very carefully here. I think that everybody, or many people have different opinions of what should go on in a school. Some of those are acceptable and easily attainable in public school. Others are not. And because the state requires what we teach, they tell us what we have to teach. So I think that it's really important that parents realize the limitations that we have as educators in public schools and allow us to do our jobs and try to help and cooperate and maybe negotiate changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Jamie?
Can you read the question again?
Yes. What underlying divisions do you see, and what would you suggest as a resolution to them?
The only underlying divisions I see are created by adults. The kids don't have any. They have friends of all different colors, shapes, sizes. Nobody talks about any division until somebody gives them that idea in their head. So I would actually call on my friends and family of the community and to be better stewards of the community and not put those ideas in our kids' heads and let them grow up like we did and enjoy life and have friends of all different shapes, sizes, colors, and everything.
Thank you, Jamie. Steve?
Having sat at the board meetings for the last 4 years, I've gotten to witness what I believe some of the divisions that this person might be asking about. We saw it during COVID and different value systems and different beliefs about how mandates should have been followed. We saw it, what was it, last spring or the spring before when we had 300 people in the audience to discuss our health curriculum. I think they're often deep-rooted, values-based decisions that people feel deeply connected to and have a high level of concern and even fear for what their students might be experiencing in the classroom. My solution to fear is always two things: courage, leaning into that difficulty and being willing to embrace that, to see what's beyond it, and then communication. I can tell you at each of those board meetings that I sat through where we had angry conversations, we had frustrated people at the podium, that when we moved to finish our open session and I got to walk the room and talk with those very same people, we had amazing conversations. What unites us is far greater than what divides us, and we experience that always when we engage as people first. When we talk to our neighbors, we move beyond the election signs and knock on their door and ask them how they're doing. And we make those connections and have those conversations, so much of that divisiveness falls away.
Thank you, Steve. All right, Karen, you're going to take this next one first, and this is kind of a longer question, so if you need me to read it twice, I will. What is your understanding of the current levels of chronic absenteeism, current test score levels, and mental health problems among students? And how would you help the board and the school address these issues? Karen? Absolutely. What is your understanding of the current levels of chronic absenteeism, current test score levels, and mental health problems among students? How would you help the board and the school to address these issues?
That is not a 90-second question. The chronic absenteeism is not just here, it's everywhere. Post-COVID, a lot of parents are just keeping their kids home, and they're working on it really hard, lots of different ways, trying to be very positive with the parents. and I could talk on that for probably 10 minutes. The second part was test scores. Our test scores are not quite up to pre-COVID scores, but that's the same, again, for the whole state. Everybody's working hard to get them up, and we are working very hard. We've got lots of interventions to help kids to bring their test scores up, and they're working very hard to do that. And I think it's going to be going in the wrong direction. And I can't even remember what the last part is. Oh, mental health. I know that we have received funds to address mental health issues, and we have hired an extra mental health counselor who's doing art therapy with the kids. All of the counselors and everywhere are working hard. There's a suicide prevention program that happens at the high school for students and staff, and I think we're working hard in that direction as well.
Thank you, Karen. Jamie.
I understand that the chronic absenteeism for Bishop schools is in the low 30%. It's 33.6 or something like that. You have to find out why the kids aren't coming to school. You have to talk to the different community leaders and figure out how we can get them back into school, which is probably causing lower test scores. If you're not there, you're not taking tests. If you're not taking tests, you're not graduating. So first and foremost, you got to find where the kids are and why they're not at school. Start holding people accountable. Why aren't your kids at school? We talk to the community leaders. What advice can they give to us to help fix this problem? There's also other school districts that are close to us in different states that have way better success rate than us. So we need to reach out to them, find out what they're having success with, and implement those things. It's not that hard. We used to be a lot better at this than we are now. And I understand we went through some hard times, but it was basically a year and a half of telling kids it wasn't important to be in class. So we need to learn how to fix that. And like I said, work together and get the kids back into school, and the other problems will slowly start to get better. It's not going to be fixed overnight.
Thank you, Jamie. Steve.
I think, as I said earlier, this is one of those where I would add to the question, what will we continue to do to address these? Because over the last 4 years, we've made significant gains in all of these areas. And some of the things that I'm hearing about solutions are what the work of the schools. They're doing that work now, and we are seeing gains. If you look at our year-over-year test scores in math and English at the elementary level, we continue to see growth in that. And we are confident that over time, we're going to see each of those students at grade level, hopefully in early elementary by the third grade, so we can build on those successes. Last year, we got the California School of Distinction from the state of California. We've got one of those banners over there at the middle school right now for achievement in math, English, and lowering suspension rates. Again, that deals with absenteeism. If I think about our students' mental health and their personal well-being, we have gone above and beyond in the last 4 years to create more opportunities, have counselors on campus. We've created a partnership with North Star. We just finalized, and again, thank you, Chief Durr and the Bishop PD. We've got an SRO, Student Resource Officer, on campus now full-time with continued funding into the future. We've got clubs for everything. One of the things whether it's mountain biking or fishing or whatever it is you want to do, our students in the Bishop School District say they believe there is a caring adult who knows them personally. We're doing good work in this area. We need to continue moving that forward.
Thank you, Steve. Michelle.
When I'm hearing from parents that students are basically being able to structure their own school schedule, agenda, and freely walk halls and not be in classrooms, and being on their phones and given the space that they need for their time, it's a multifaceted situation we have here. There's what's going on at the home, what's going on with the school policies, and how can we bring the middle ground. When I think about the chronic absenteeism, it's just enforcing policy. What are our current policies as far as the attendance and being able to still stay enrolled in the BUSD school district? And then also being able to prioritize that with parents is like, why aren't your kids in school? Community members, why are we not pushing for our kids to stay in school? And then also, like Jamie pointed out, if kids are in schools more, the test scores will go up, hopefully with effective curriculum in place in the classrooms. When those will correlate closely together. When we talk about the mental health, I see a huge area in trying to get a secured cell phone policy on our campuses and enforcing it strictly and having that understood and not having the crutches available of our devices and develop the minds of our children. When those things are in place of enforcing policy and creating new policy about the smartphones, I think we will address all of these issues.
Thank you, Michelle. All right, next question. Jamie, you'll take this one first. What were the lessons learned from COVID, and how should that inform the school district's response to future major events?
The lessons I think that were learned from COVID were we shouldn't shoot from the hip with anything. We should make sure that the decisions are the right decisions being made. We confuse personal opinion and personal belief with right and wrong and law. That gets the school in trouble. And if you couldn't see that keeping kids at home for 2 years was going to be a problem and lead to what we're talking about now, I don't know what to tell you. You could see it a mile away. So we need to make sure we're not destroying our community for something that is probably we're going to look back and see that it was a mistake. So we need to make the right decisions and make sure we're not doing more damage than help, and follow the law as close as we can that our community can handle and our school district can handle, and we won't be running into these decade-long problems that we're into now.
Thank you, Jamie. Steve.
Whew. Again, having sat in the boardroom for all of those conversations, being part of those decisions, I know how easy it is to Monday morning quarterback, right? We want to look back, but that was the first time our nation and our world had ever gone through something like that, especially with the levels of technology we had. We need to keep that in mind with our decision making. Are there lessons to be learned? Absolutely. I wish that we were a little more calm and a little more reasonable in our decision making. Had maybe taken a little more time and a beat. As a board, we shouldn't have brought some things we should not have perhaps agendized items and brought them to a vote that were not ours. They weren't areas that where we had the freedoms to vote on, and that was some of our mistakes. But I think what's more important, again, and I'm not sure why this is so difficult to see, but our successes. We had other districts calling our superintendent saying, how are you doing what you're doing in your schools because you're seeing such success? We had more in-seat student time and face-to-face student time than almost any other school in California, district in California. We were the model that others aspired to. So I am happy to stand here and engage in discussion with anybody about how we could do better, because I always believe in improvement. But let's not forget that we're standing on a solid effort.
As a parent that was parenting a student through COVID here locally, the lessons I believe to be learned is not just being aware that it is definitely a shooting from the hip, as pointed out from Jamie, that we were all learning. We were all trying to figure out what was going on and trying to figure out what was safe, what was not, and trying to do what was best for the children in our communities, not just here, but also throughout the entire country. When I look at the systems that were put in place for the distance learning as being a homeschool graduate, I began to cringe as to how they were all structured, as to being effective ways to teach children from the home, trying to have teachers understand how to present to children in the home, and also being able to have parents effectively co-teach their children in the home. I think it was also a lesson learned of eye-opening experience of what teachers actually go through in the classroom on a day-to-day basis when they are in their seats. So it was a big wake-up call for parents when all of a sudden they were also face-to-face with their children's education as well as their curriculum. When it comes to another lesson to be learned from COVID is also being aware that there are special needs in our community that needed to be recognized and also accommodated a little bit better in our community. I am a mother of a special needs child through COVID, and she was not accommodated.
All right, thank you, Michelle. Karen?
Well, I'd like to build a little bit on what Michelle said, and that is that the parents really got hit with a lot as well as the kids. And everybody had this huge learning curve that they all went through. And I think that everyone did the best that they could. I wasn't aware that of what Steve had said, that we were apparently a model school district for many other school districts. And that even though everybody was sort of making it up as they went along, you think through a plan, think that it's going to work, implement it, and maybe it wasn't the very best choice, but it was the very best choice that you could have at that time. And I think everyone was doing the best that they could. I know I did a little bit of tutoring during, long-distance tutoring during COVID, and the kids that I had to work with just weren't engaged at all. And there seemed to be no parental support whatsoever for some of them. And so I think the parents being overwhelmed was a big part of it, or at least a part of it. And it was difficult for everyone. And hopefully, God forbid it should ever happen again, we'll have a little bit better ground to start from so that we know where to go.
Thank you, Karen. All right, our next question. Steve, you'll take this one first. What financial management experience do you have?
You mean other than paying my bills every month? So I come to the table, I came to the school board, and what I brought to the table was my expertise in education, which was deep, and continues to be. My financial experience beyond managing personal finances, paying back my student loans and that sort of thing wasn't as deep. But I've worked closely with our CBO over the years to learn the budgeting process and to understand how we can use that to make sure we're addressing district priorities. And I think that's the key to understand is that we have an expert in the district office who can provide answers to all the questions we have. And it's a board member's responsibility to understand how they can leverage that budget in different ways to address the priorities of the district.
Thank you, Steve. Michelle?
Alrighty. Most of mine is going to be from personal finances in our home. Being able to navigate moves, navigate being able to still live in a small community, prioritizing much needed funds towards like rent, gas funds, food funds, and all curriculum funds, being able to know what it's going to take to live in a small town and know when to reach out for help, and also when you need to buckle down and just get down to brass tacks. When it comes to the question of being able to manage finances, I think it really just reflects on what has been the habits prior to an election to the school board and what can be improved upon on a new school board season. When you enter a office with that scope, then I think you're really not only in a place to learn, but also in a place to also see where there can be an improvement.
Thank you, Michelle. Karen?
Well, like the other two, my main experience with managing finances has just been with our own family. And I would imagine that learning how bigger finances for a big thing like the Bishop Unified School District, learning how that works would be one of the things that would be one of my top priorities to enter into and learn about so that I can understand it completely. My emphasis is, like Steve, I bring education to the board. I bring experience in education, working with children, working with teachers. And I'm sure there are many areas that the school board will be talking about that I will need to learn, and I'm eager and willing to do that.
Thank you, Karen. Jamie?
As far as personal finances go, all my bills are paid. I have the only outstanding bill I have right now is my mortgage. So, but I do have some investments, and I've always used the philosophy of if I don't have the money to buy something, I don't buy it. I've been slow and steady my whole life and built some good investments. As far as the school board goes, that's something I'm gonna have to learn if I get elected. You know, like Steve said, leveraging the budget for different things that the school district needs. But you don't want to get into too much trouble, too much debt, and you don't want to make the mistake of spending half the school's budget on something that wasn't worth it. So that's something I'm gonna have to learn. The good news is there's lots of people that know about it, and I'm eager to learn about it.
Thank you so much, Jamie. All right, Michelle, you're going to take our last question first. And unfortunately, I have a whole pile of really good questions up here. I wasn't able to get to all of them, so if your question is not answered, please stick around afterwards. If you are chosen, how will you use your platform to provide opportunities for all students in the community, including homeschoolers and private schoolers?
I think it would be best served if I am elected in November 5th to fill one of the seats, is to recognize that we do have a growing homeschooling and private community here in the area, and recognizing that they are a reflection of community's choice and the lessons that we can learn from each of those family situations as to why they have chosen that form of education for their family. And if that reflects anything that appears to be a deficit in the school district, then it should be noted. And if it's a growing concern, then it needs to be paid attention to, especially when you have multiple families trying to leave for the same reason. When you try to always make it public versus homeschooling versus private, this is more divisiveness. It's all education. It's all prioritizing how our children learn best and prioritizing how we, as parents in the community, want to help be there for their futures. As a school board member, I would want to try to effectively communicate that to the community, that it's not just about the public schools, but about the children within the district as well.
Thank you, Michelle. Karen? Yeah? If you are elected, how will you use your platform to provide opportunities for all students in the community, including homeschool and private school students?
I think it's important for for the public schools to communicate with the private schools and the homeschooling community, to find out what's working in each of those platforms. As Michelle said, some of the things that work in public schools might not work in homeschooling, as some things work in homeschooling might not work in public schools. But to find the things that we have in common, that we can grow on and help support each other in whatever ways we can. I have found that the public school is gaining a good handful of kids who are coming back from homeschooling. And I was in a classroom just yesterday where a homeschooled child was coming back into public school. So it's not all a one-way thing. Everybody's not running away from public schools. But I think that we have things that we can learn from one another.
Thank you, Karen. Jamie?
I would use my platform to encourage any schooling anybody wanted to pursue. I think competition breeds success, and if we want all the kids in the public school, we have to put out a good product. We have to have something to show people that, hey, it's great over here. You can trust us with your kids, and they're going to have a great time and a great education. So as long as we put out the product, kids will come to the school, but competition always breeds success. So we should encourage different schools in the community. It's a good thing.
Thank you, Jamie. Steve?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we want to provide a multitude of educational opportunities for parents and within our community. I see it less of as a competition as I do a choice, right? Each of those institutions, whether it's the families choosing homeschools and using the services that are provided, whether it's the private schools in our area, trying to create the best schools they can, they've got their own mission and their own charters that they follow. Our obligation as a school board member is to make choices that are going to do the best for the Bishop Unified School District. That said, we want to make sure we're doing our best to care for each student within our community. And so where might there be opportunities as we set the vision for Bishop Unified School District and move forward in that areas, where might there be opportunities for partnerships with other schools in our area, for inclusion of some of those students in other sorts of activities, whether it might be sports or extracurriculars, so that we can share some of the opportunities that we have, because Bishop Schools, as being the largest district in the Owens Valley, has the most opportunities as well, whether that's going to be field trips or sports or guest speakers or resources. And so how might we be able to create, again, partnerships that might lead to inclusion, right? Our success, again, is in our collaboration.
Thank you, Steve. And thank you once again to all of our candidates for being here this evening. And with that, this concludes our forum. Thank you again for coming out tonight. There are 2 positions for the School Board of Trustees available on this November's ballot. If you are interested or you have questions or concerns or comments about bond measures R&S, I'd like to invite you to stick around a little bit longer. Katie Kulker will be available to answer those questions. And thank you and have a wonderful night. Katie, you want to come up? Katie, you want to come back up to the mic? Yeah. Cool.
Say hi to your wife for me.
I will.